I'd ask Russ. Russ, can you hear us?
Or Bert Garfield.
Or Bert Garfield, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, thanks, Bert.
Welcome to this Board of Commissioners meeting for July 26, 2023. We typically start these meetings with a prayer, thought, or reading, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have any volunteers for a prayer, thought, or reading? Anybody? Yeah. And then the pledge, I guess it's right in front and behind you two. Do you want to like Rochambeau and you can see who's going to do? So one will do prayer, one will do pledge? Great. That'll be great if one does prayer, one does pledge. So come up to the podium and just state your name for the record. Thank you.
My name's Kristen Ritchie. Our Father in heaven, we're meeting together today as a group of citizens concerned for the welfare of our community. We're grateful for our blessings, for the freedoms we enjoy, for the people who serve, for those who are trying to stand for liberty wherever they are. We are grateful for our many blessings in this free land and ask you to bless us this day throughout the remainder of this meeting, that we might be able to have thy guidance in solving the difficult challenges that we face here in our county and in our nation. We are grateful for thy many blessings and acknowledge thy hand in our lives, and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Stand, Jensen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. It looks like we don't have any work session items or recognitions today, so we'll jump into the creation of our agenda. And let's go items 1 through 10. Do we have any that we need to hold?
I have none.
I don't have any either.
I don't either. All right, 11 through 20.
Striking 18.
And then I would like to hold
17?
17. Yep.
Okay. And did you say strike 18?
Strike 18.
Okay.
Just strike?
Understand that they're not ready. Is that
Okay.
was the recommendation, Paul?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. 21 through 30.
I have none.
None for me either.
Okay. And then 31 through 35.
I think we should hold
Hold
32.
32.
Okay.
Okay.
Any others?
None others.
All right. And then, Paul, do we need any of the closed sessions? That hasn't changed? You're on a roll. It's 2 weeks in a row. All right. We can strike 36, 37, 38, and 39. All right. Alice, you want to read that back to us?
You bet. Okay, I have us holding regular agenda items number 17, striking 18, holding 32, and then as far as our closed meetings, we're striking all four, which is 36, 37, 38, and 39.
That is correct. Thank you, Alice. Right. We will start with item number 17. So item number 17 is to approve a resolution designating August as Utah County Breastfeeding Month. And I've got a resolution. This is similar to the resolution that we've passed in the last 2 years, so this would be the third year, designating August as Utah County Breastfeeding Month. The resolution says, whereas all major medical authorities recommend exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life with continued breastfeeding for at least 1 year, whereas the U.S. Breastfeeding Committee designates August as National Breastfeeding Month, and the World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action designates August 1st through 7th as World Breastfeeding Week, whereas National Breastfeeding Month focuses on the use of data and measurement to build and reinforce the connections between breastfeeding and a broad spectrum of other health topics and initiatives, whereas National Breastfeeding Month and World Breastfeeding Week provide important opportunities to address barriers to breastfeeding faced by families across the United States and around the world. Whereas breastfeeding is a biological norm for infant feeding and a proven primary prevention strategy that builds a foundation for lifelong health and wellness. Whereas the evidence of the value of breastfeeding to the health of the mother and of the child is scientific, solid, and continually reaffirmed by new research. Whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention publishes an annual breastfeeding report card, which has consistently shown suboptimal breastfeeding initiation rates, as well as substantial declines in continued and exclusive breastfeeding as babies grow. Whereas there are substantial health disparities when there is a lack of access to lactation support, resulting in reduced breastfeeding rates and an associated increase in risk for adverse health outcomes. Whereas at the time of this resolution, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that among Utah infants born in 2019, 86.5% were ever breastfed, with lower breastfeeding rates in some populations. This report also shows that Utah County's breastfeeding rates exceed those above the state average at 90.5%. Good job, Utah County. Whereas the Healthy People Initiative consistently identifies breastfeeding as a national health priority, whereas the great majority of new parents want their infants to receive breast milk but face significant barriers in community, healthcare, and employment settings. Whereas some people may choose not to breastfeed or are unable to do so, however, all parents can benefit from access to education on infant nutrition and wellness. Whereas studies confirm that human milk is the most developmentally appropriate nourishment for infants, whereas protecting and supporting breastfeeding is essential to ensuring critical food security and immunologic protection for Utah County's youngest people, and whereas the consistent and well-documented health, economic, and environmental benefits of breast milk show that this is an investment that will continue to produce measurable dividends across the country and many times over for families, employers, and the government. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Utah County Commissioners Amelia Powers Gardner, Brandon Gordon, Tom Sakovich, and Utah County designates August as Breastfeeding Month, supports the goals of National Breastfeeding Month and World Breastfeeding Week, and supports policies and funding to ensure that all lactating mothers can access a full range of appropriate support from healthcare institutions, insurers, employers, early care and education providers, researchers, and government entities. I have sponsored that resolution for the last 3 years. As a young professional working at Caterpillar, I had my first baby when I was a field rep, and at the time, I at times had to pump for my child in airport terminals before there were mother's lounges in airports. I think the most interesting place that I pumped for my child was in the cab of a wheel loader on a job site, either that or the pit trailer of a drag race team. Because at the time, 17 years ago, this was not very common. And as the first mother to serve as a county commissioner, I think it's important that we continue to support all of the mothers in our community, whether or not they have the opportunity to be at home with their child. They should be able to find resources to support the best nourishment for that child. And I think a few years ago when we had a infant formula shortage, it really underscored that for the security of our families, we need to ensure that young mothers have the resources that they need, that their employers support them, and that we as a community support them in that breastfeeding. I know also when I started as a young mother, it was not uncommon for a woman breastfeeding a child on a bench at a mall to be asked to leave, although she could have been sitting in front of a Victoria's Secret ad. Didn't make any sense. And I think we've come a long way since then, and I think that we as a major exporter of children here in this county should support all of our children and our mothers. So I ask that my fellow commissioners pass this resolution. Any thoughts?
No, as in the previous 2 years, I fully support this, and I'd like to make a motion.
I'll
Absolutely.
second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0. Thank you. All right. The next item is item number 32, authorize a change to the staffing plan to remove a full-time career service elections director and add a full-time appointed chief deputy to the clerk's office. Let's see. Merritt is the one who put it on there, but do we have initial thoughts? From you, Tom?
Maybe we should hear from Human Resources first, and maybe then Aaron.
Okay. Do we have somebody from Houghton? Ralph?
Yes, Ralph Barnes, Human Resources. So the request was made by by Aaron to essentially add the chief deputy position. The opportunity was there to eliminate another role if that was the only way to fund that, and so that's how it was framed. The discussion was whether is there another way to provide the services needed for his department. And I think the argument of Aaron's, which I'm sure he'll speak to, is that coming up on the election, he's going to need some assistance, and exactly what that looks like is up to him and the commission, I think, going forward. But this is essentially just a mechanism by which he is able to do that with the commission's support. And if there's another way to do it, I think he'd be open to that too. So.
Thank you.
So basically, the reason why Amelia and I were both late is we were talking before we came in to kind of discuss some of the issues on this agenda item. And I think we agree on a lot of the issues that are at hand. The only main issue is that I believe that I should be able to have a chief deputy, and Amelia, I believe, feels that I should have a professional director of elections running the elections. But as I got elected, I was really unsure what I was going to do. I've never been in elections. And I've learned a lot through this last 6 months. It's been very challenging, and I've learned a lot, and I've made some changes in the department that I felt have been really beneficial. I've found new ways to clear up the voter roll. So I don't know if it's necessarily a professional that has to run the elections. And I feel that I had my director of elections quit and leave to go to work for the lieutenant governor's office. And I think that was a good move for Roseanne, because there have been 21 county clerks, new county clerks in the state of Utah in the last 2 years. And so the county clerks really need a lot of training, and I think that was the best place for Roseanne to go. But with her leaving, it left the director of elections vacant, and then a month later, the assistant director left also to take a director position in Oregon. So I had 2 vacancies all of a sudden really quick. And I had planned on moving Justin to director, but there were some things in the office that I felt he needed to learn a little bit more before he assumed the directorship of elections. But he elected to leave. So now I was stuck with no professional directors, but I think I've learned a lot, and I've actually told my staff that I assumed the director of elections, and that I needed some help, and I decided that I wanted to hire a chief deputy to help fulfill some of the functions of my office, which include budget, finance, marriage license and passport, and records. And I plan on hiring somebody that's very competent, very knowledgeable about a lot of the different functions of my office. So I feel that it's, I received more delegate votes at the convention, the Republican convention, than any other candidate that was running. So I feel that I have a mandate from my constituents, from the voters of this county, and they have confidence in me that I can run a fair and honest election. and that's what I plan on doing. That is my number one goal, is to create election integrity and run the best campaign that we can. And I think it's in my purview, as talking to other county officers, that I have that right to decide how my office is going to run. And I think that this is interference in me being able to do that. So I hope you can understand that and have faith in me that I will run a competent, honest, and fair election, with or without professional elections directors. I have a very competent staff. I love my staff. I work very well with my staff. And we have made changes, like I said, and we have made very efficient changes. And I feel that I can operate that office without an assistant elections director. I'd like to keep it just in case on the budget, and just in case in the presidential election cycle, if I do need additional help, I can hire another assistant under me. But I think I have great capabilities of running an election with the staff that I have, with the help of a chief deputy, which, again, elections are kind of cyclical, and a chief deputy would be able to fill in a lot of those dips with other tasks that I assign them, rather than just, working on election stuff and training on election stuff. So, that's pretty much it. I just feel that I can do it, and I feel that you should vote to allow me to have a chief deputy. My previous two predecessors had a chief deputy in the office, and I feel that I should have that chief deputy position. With that, do you have any questions for me?
Do you see the main role, or what is it really that individual is? What are we accomplishing with that individual?
The chief deputy?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, so a lot of it is, since I assumed the director of elections, there's a lot of other tasks that I have to do. There's the budget cycle that's coming up, and I would want to hope that I could find somebody that has not only election expertise, but also budget expertise, and dealing with staff expertise and supervisor expertise. So it's going to have to be someone that's very intelligent and well-rounded. So yeah, it's fulfilling all of those tasks that I need assistance with.
Okay. And I guess I'm trying to understand the difference between your existing appointed Ms. Cox, if you will, that helps. What are the different duties as well?
What are the different duties?
What she is currently doing?
That's a very fair question. She performs a lot of the more administrative functions, so office functions, agenda items, interacting with the staff. She's now going through a job description analysis to see if we can better utilize our staff. So she's right now interviewing each of the staff members as to what they do and what they would like to do, what they think their competencies are, to make sure that they're using all of their competencies. There's a great book called The Peters Principle, and the major concept in Peter Principle is people rise to the level of incompetency. And I don't want that to happen. I find someone a lot of times in organizations, they'll find somebody very competent in their position and they'll promote them. And that promotion, they're not really comfortable with, usually like a managerial position. They were very good at their functional position, but once they get promoted to a managerial position, they become very incompetent, and the organization usually fires them because they're incompetent. But they were very competent with what they were doing. So instead of taking them back down where they enjoyed what they're doing, they get rid of them, and that's called the Peters Principle. And so instead of looking at my staff and say, who should I promote? I'm taking a look at all my staff and say, what do you really want to be doing? And so we're going through a job description analysis and finding out where and what each individual should be doing, and promote those that would want to be promoted and have skills to do that, but to put each person in the responsibilities that they want. So she's coordinating that project right now.
Okay.
The, I think you and I spoke on this about a month, 2 months ago. It's been a bit of time. Under Title 20A, the Utah State statute, it says that the county clerk is the elections officer, or also it's also known as an elections administrator, just as the lieutenant governor is the elections officer for the state of Utah. Each county's clerk is the elections officer. So whoever you bring on in addition to that would support whatever direction you gave that individual. We had talked some about this in November 22nd. I didn't realize this would garner so much attention, but I started getting emails yesterday afternoon, and it stopped about 2 in the morning. It started again about 6 this morning, and I was still getting some more just before I came over here. But there seems to be a concern that we have an elected official who is going to be serving as elections officer as defined in Title 20A. And there should be no concern about that. And the chief deputy, as we have chief deputies in other organizations, don't supplant the principal officer of that organization. They act under that individual's direction. But in November 22, this past year, I had to review that this morning after all those emails, and we had talked roughly about 1 hour and 10 minutes through 1 hour and 50 whatever minutes it was, back and forth about splitting the clerk auditor and the functions and the impact and the staffing needs that might be needed. And at that time, we had discussed that once the staffing plan has been approved, the budget's been approved, then as defined in the statute, then the commission then allows that department to make adjustments as they need to throughout the year, which we have seen in other departments. And when there's vacancies or when there needs to be consolidations of positions in order to increase a position's role, that's been pretty common. In this case, you have a confidential assistant, and I had promoted the idea that maybe we should hold off on a chief deputy last year for your position just to see what the newly elected official would decide that may be necessary. And now we have 7 months into the game. You have felt that you do need this chief deputy in order to assist what you're trying to accomplish. And so under the statute, I can see why that's necessary and it's appropriate to do that. We have the funds, we have the vacancies, we can do that as we've done for other departments. And so I don't see a hurdle here. And you would be acting as the elections officer or elections administrator as the county clerk. So you would delegate responsibilities in order to take care of your administrative needs, while at the same time, according to statute, then you could also have other election managers to assist you as needed. So these are, to me at least, seems to be pretty set in precedent under statute. So for me, I didn't see an issue for this change.
So quick question on that, Commissioner Sakovic. So you saying that when you proposed splitting the offices and I said that they needed a chief deputy and you said that they didn't, that I was right and you were wrong?
Maybe so. I said actually what I said, let's wait till the elected official decides.
No, I think you said they don't both need a chief deputy, which is why I voted no on the split, because it would cost more money. Mm-hmm. So my question on that is, I do agree they need a chief deputy because I said so originally, and you and Commissioner Lee refused to fund the position, which is why I voted no, because you wouldn't fund it. I think it's okay that we need a chief deputy, but I think that a position of your size, a department of your size, the reason there were 2 appointed officials in the clerk auditor's department is because it was twice the size. I'm fine with there being a chief deputy, but I think there should just be 1 appointed position in a department of this size. So in every job, in every department, there's more things to do than we have the funding and the resources to do. Every department head and every employee in this room will tell you that we have more to do than we have the resources to do. So I think you have an appointed position. If you need If you need that position to not be a confidential assistant, if you want to make the argument that it should be a chief deputy, I think that's a very valid argument. And I think we could look at upgrading the current position. And then you can look at the resources that you have with the staff. There are things a merit elections director could absolutely help you build a budget for the entire department. You could upgrade the existing position utilizing time-limited funds. You have a huge time-limited budget to help run the election. If what you need help with, if you need less help with the election and more help with running the department, it's well within your current purview to transfer money from your time-limited budget into upgrading your current appointed position from a confidential assistant to a chief deputy. I think there's absolutely ways that we can focus on getting you the resources and the help you need within your current budget that doesn't take power and oversight away from elections. Of the 40-ish emails that we received supporting this change, almost every single one of them said, I want more eyes on the election. But what you're literally trying to do is eliminate more effort on election integrity to do office administrative roles. So I want to help you solve your problem without taking resources away from the election. I have stood where you stand. I have been 6 months in to being the county clerk without the experience prior to that. And you think you have things figured out as you're staring down the barrel of a BB gun. A municipal primary is the smallest election you will ever run. Elections seem very cyclical in a municipal year. We're literally staring down a municipal primary, which is the smallest election. Next year is a presidential year. You will need all hands on deck. You will need an elections director to help you. You will need an assistant elections director to help you. We can get you a chief deputy by transferring time-limited funds and upgrading your current appointed position. But I think putting less eyes on the election, less oversight and less manpower on election integrity, which is what people are concerned about, and moving it over to administrative functions is not what the people of the county want. I know that I think that the best thing for our county, a county of our size, and you can't compare us to Juab County and Garfield County and Cache County. We have a significantly higher population. We have a significantly more complicated operation. We need to focus on elections. And I think that we can get you both a chief deputy and keep a career service elections director. I think that is a win-win. It gets you what you need, as well as keeps the eyes and the attention on election integrity that we all want.
But to that point, we've had chief deputies and confidential assistants in the last couple clerk auditors.
Right, but that was the clerk auditor.
Right.
But now it's just the clerk.
But we had two different individuals who were working quasi chief deputy roles as a focus on auditing, focusing on elections, clerking, and then we had a confidential assistant. I can see where
No, we only had one chief deputy.
we had someone overseeing both separate different functions of that chief deputy, or excuse me, the clerk auditor roles.
And we had a confidential assistant and a chief deputy.
Right. But then you had others who were not identified as chief deputies, but
That were
Serving
career
as-
merit staff people.
serving as quasi chief deputies over that different function.
in the auditor's
No,
department.
I don't think we did.
I'll have to double check that, but regardless.
I was the clerk auditor.
yeah.
I remember who worked for me.
No, I was watching it pretty carefully because we were talking about why it's just separated and that the bulk of the weight that was on your shoulders at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said that we didn't need the chief deputy in November 2022, I said that because I wanted the election, the newly elected official to decide that, but for now to focus only on the separation. What would that look like? And that was my principal focus. So that's all I
Yeah.
aimed
Well, and
at.
I think you can have both. I think you can have a chief deputy and an elections director. there are certain protections that come with a merit position that I think give people confidence having that person in charge of elections. And I think we can do both. I think one of the issues that you had is you felt that it would take too long to hire that person. I don't know, Ralph, if you can help address this. I think as a commission, we recognize that elections is of a high priority. Could we reprioritize your office's responsibilities and say, let's get an election director position at that top of that list? And if Aaron wants to reclassify his current appointed position to a chief deputy, could you get an approved title to the top of your, could we put these at the top of your priority list? And if so, how quickly could that happen?
Tall. So yes, we can absolutely do that. There is a lot going on right now in HR. We're we have a lot going on with comp, but because this is so important and we are, facing, some elections coming up, we can absolutely move that to the top of the list of things we're working on. So.
Yeah.
And again, to that point, I see the value of him getting a chief deputy quickly because he is the elections officer, he is the elections administrator in the state statute, just as the lieutenant governor is the elections officer for the state.
Right, but she also has an elections director and a training coordinator and an
Correct, yes.
elections
And
coordinator
and I
that
think
all have over a decade
Right,
of
and-
elections experience.
Right, and so the point here for today is whether or not to approve a chief deputy, which the others absolutely he's going to need. But I think he needs that. He needs to keep the confidential assistant that he has. And the next step would be pursuing additional people that you think that you need as you define it. Because one of the things we did discuss during that time was that we want elected officials to decide how they're going to use their budgets and their staffing. And if follow his lead as the elections officer for the county, to follow his guidance, what is it that he needs, let him decide and define what that need is.
Right. Well, and you realize you could hire whoever you want time limited today. You do have a substantial time limited budget. You could hire whoever you wanted time limited today. That would give you time to get the help you need. We could upgrade. I'm okay with one appointed position in this department. That's what the assessor's office has. That's what the recorder's office has. That's what the other offices of similar size have. And you could hire whoever you wanted, time limited today, using your existing budget. We could work on upgrading your appointed position to whatever job description you need, and Ralph is committed to give that top priority so that it takes less than a week. And you can keep the career service professionals who have years of experience and are certified and frankly, that have the help that you're going to need moving forward. I think there's a very easy win-win here. We can get you what you need to help solve your problem while still keeping eyes on the election.
Right. And well, talking about the time limited, most of my time limited come in at about $14.65 an hour. And I don't think I can get anybody that's competent enough to do what I need to have done for $14.65 an hour.
Right. So you can
And
actually
then-
create a new time-limited position, and there are several on the books. Ralph, do you want to address that? Maybe some of the other time-limited positions that are on the books that he could post tomorrow?
Yeah, so we do have some roles that are available that you could, as long as you can allocate funds and you have those available, which yes, you do, we can, pay them a lot more than $14.65 an hour, and we can make that, pay that's essentially appropriate as long as you don't exceed, the total of the budget, to get in who you need as far as the talent goes. But we do have a lot of, vacant roles on the books available to do that. So that is something that you would be able to do right away if that's what you chose to do.
Yeah, so we could do that right away and get you what you need
And
while
that's-
still keeping
that's
eyes
true.
on the election integrity without having to reduce the amount of staff working on elections.
Well, the budget in my time limited budget is a lot of the people that I have to bring on to run the elections.
Right, but we could take unused 1,100 funds. So
Right.
you haven't been paying an election director for almost 2 months. You haven't been paying an assistant elections director for at least 2 weeks. Those are unused salary and benefits. We could transfer that into a time-limited fund to get you someone temporarily.
There's one other thing that kind of really, I wouldn't say irritated or bothered me, but concerned me, is there were certain things when Roseanne and Justin were still here. I'd go in and ask them a question. I'd say, can I look at this? Can I do this? And they say, we're the professionals. Let us do it. We're trying to protect you. And it's mainly the words, we're trying to protect you. It's like, well, what are you trying to protect me from? And I never felt comfortable with that answer.
Yeah, are you
And so
talking about the
I
time
have-
you asked to get access to a document that legally we're not allowed to open because it's sealed by court order?
No, it's things that they do. Well, you're doing this. Show me what you're doing. Tell me what you're doing. And they say, well, we're just trying to protect you. I don't want to be protected. I want to know what's happening in my office. And so So that did put kind of a negative sense in my mind for the professional elections directors. I don't want to be protected.
So can you name one thing that you asked to see that they wouldn't let you see that isn't legally sealed by court order?
It's been months, but each time they just wanted to protect me. And it was just seeing how the Agilis machine works and how the data gets in there, just the data flow of the process. I think I should be able to have access to every data flow to see how it runs, see how it operates in order to have election integrity. I can't attest to election integrity if I don't know every step of the process. So I'm trying to learn every step of the process so that I can assure that I am conducting elections with integrity. And I don't want a professional elections person saying, you don't need to know that. We know that. You just keep to your political stuff.
I'm going to challenge you to give me a list of everything you asked to see that you didn't get access to.
I don't have a recording of that, Amelia. I can't do that.
So he comes up with a platitude that says he wasn't shown something, and I ask what he wasn't shown, and you guys don't want to know what it is?
Interrupt him every time he talks too, though. Just let him talk.
I wouldn't expect you to remember everything you said to anybody or any ask you've made.
If it was important enough, I would. I'm telling you. Really? Because I can tell you which polling location Tiffany right there voted at because I have a photographic memory. If I had asked...
Oh, that's a scary, actually.
Yeah, it is. I have a photographic memory. If you asked to see data and employees of our county refused to show you that data, we should know so that we can reprimand those employees.
They didn't refuse. Well, they refused, yeah. But they didn't refuse because it was an illegal ask. They just refused because they felt that they were doing me a service by not letting me be bothered or burdened by just another knowledge of another process. It took me a while to figure out how to download the voter roll because, let us do that. No, I kept asking, how do I get access to the voter roll? I want to see the voter roll in a straight flat file. If those of data that know about data, they know what a flat file is. I wanted to look and review the voter roll as a flat data file so that I could start looking at ways to clean the voter roll. And ask my staff. We've come up with 2 ways that are not standard ways to clean up the voter roll. They're based upon ways that I figured out to clean that up without hiring a professional or having the professional do it, which they hadn't been doing it. As an example, we've tried to figure out, there's the has verified flag where new registrants haven't verified who they are with an ID. We found out how to get at that data, and a month ago there were 1,300 of them. Today there's about 14, because we figured out a new way to start cleaning those items up. I downloaded the data and I congregated it by number of people living at a specific address. And we created a report from 7 up who were living at the same address, and that we had no access to that data through the VISTA system. That was through me. And we split it out. We had them start calling those addresses and started cleaning out, the son and daughter that had moved away years ago, that they have continued to get ballots for them. And we have started to clean that up, not by anything that VISTA could provide. It was stuff that I was able to gain access to, which at first they said, no, that doesn't in VISTA, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. We're trying to protect you. It's like, no, I don't want to be protected. I want access to the data so that I can do my job more efficiently.
Well, if that is occurring, that is very disturbing. And so that's why I said, if there are things that you asked for access to that you were not given access to, we should absolutely address that, because things shouldn't be kept from you. So my challenge to you is, if there are things that you've asked for access to that you've not been given access to, we should know about that.
Okay, well, the other one is I asked for a key to the ballot processing center. And they said, no, we don't want you to go in there unless you're accompanied, whatever. They didn't want me down there.
Well, yeah, you're not supposed to go in there there should always be 2 people at all times in the ballot center. That's best practice.
Well, I agree. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't have a key. What's that?
Who gets a key?
There's several of the staff that have keys. But I now have a key because I am the election director. So I have a key. So that wasn't an illegal ask. That was a legal ask that I was being denied. And I still don't have an access. There's an alarm system down there, and I can't go in by myself because I don't have an input to the alarm system. That is the protection, that I have to go down with somebody and somebody else has to go down with somebody, because one person has
Right.
the
I was going to
access.
say that's built into the system, right? One person has
Okay.
the key and one person has the code, so that you don't have both. Because if you had both the key and the code, you could go in there without anybody else. And in
But I don't.
elections, there should always be 2 people.
But I could have had the key when Roseanne was here, the same as I have a key now.
So basically, you have an elections director vacancy and an assistant elections director vacancy. And so what we're trying to do is fill one of these 2 with a chief.
Well, I'm not trying to fill it. I'm trying to use the budget.
Replace the director with the chief deputy, and then you have a vacancy, the assistant elections director. That could be filled, the
That's true.
assistant, keeping transparency
and I
here.
could rift the position of the confidential assistant and give the assistant director, give that person the title of the assistant director, which would still be in compliance.
But you have funds right now for elections director that you're trying to replace, get rid of, and go with the chief deputy. And then
Correct.
you have an assistant director
that I could still
that's
hire.
vacant, still in the funds that go with that. And then you have a confidential assistant. And so what we're doing is just looking at one of those positions to replace with a chief deputy, not both positions.
Correct.
It's probably where I have the biggest heartburn, is pulling eyes out of. I mean, you've lost 2 very key people. Have you, 2, right, from the office? Have you lost any more than that?
No, just the
Okay,
2.
just those 2, right? And so taking eyes off of that, just to have them do clerical work, to me, whether I got an email or a text for or against, it was all about election integrity. And I believe all of us in here are all about that.
Right. And those
We are all
additional
about that.
eyes that I will hire will be very good eyes, the same as the director of elections.
So my
It's
issue,
just-
I guess, is with having 2. So I like what you just said there, where if you did riff your, assistant that is an appointed position to create the chief deputy, then that's okay. Only having 1 appointed person. And then if you were to and if you needed an emergency need right now, going through this time limited, if it's just a budget thing,
We can give you the resources you need within the current structure.
Ralph's committing to do it quickly. My big issue is just with having more than 1 appointed person. Like I say, you have Ms. Cox, right now.
Right.
And so if we're going to take eyes off of the election to have somebody else do just budget
Well, I could
and
also
cycle
move,
things
I could
like
move
that.
Cox into the assistant elections director. And that would get rid of my appointed position for a merit position, and then hire this appointed position of chief deputy, with the funds that were vacated by the director of elections. So, I mean, there's alternatives, there's other ways to do it. But this is the way, as the clerk, as the officer of the clerk's office, this is the way that I want to do it. And if it's a budget issue, it's a budget issue. But to present these arguments of, well, you could do this with this person's talents and this person, I believe that's off the table for this discussion in the chambers, in the commissioners' chambers, because it is basically, you have jurisdiction over my budget. You don't have jurisdiction over how I run my office. And the budget's there. It's just a change of where it's put.
You do have jurisdiction over having, like I say, my heartburn over a lot of appointed positions that aren't.
Stop eating it and you won't have a heartburn.
I need some Prilosec, somebody. No, but that's where I'm hung up. And I'm not, every single, like I say, one of us is all about that election integrity. I want to make sure you understand that.
I completely understand
Yeah,
it.
and
And I
so-
know that my voters, my constituencies completely understand that and they expect that of me. So I'm not going to do anything, this hypothecation of, I'm going to start doing things that aren't, aligned with voter integrity are just completely misbased. There's no basis for that fear. I've done nothing to show that I am going to do anything that violates the voter integrity of what happens here in Utah County.
Before we get too far, just so we don't have a misunderstanding, a department head cannot move an appointed employee into a merit spot at will.
They would have to apply.
They would have to go through the merit application. process.
Totally
I
understand
knew what he
that.
meant when he
Wanna
said
make
that.
sure we
Thanks,
didn't-
Paul. Yes.
Lose that.
I knew what you meant when you said that. But, yeah.
So as elected officials, we are still bound to the county rules and the county policies. And you have to learn how to utilize your resources within the bounds of the county rules and the county policies.
And the county policies say, I have to get approval from you to move my budget from merit to appointed. That's the only thing that the policies say. They don't say that you have to approve, my thought process and my convictions of how I want to run my office.
Right, and what we're
It's
telling you is
strictly a
we're okay
budget
with you
issue.
having one appointed person, as is the case with the other offices of your size.
But the other offices don't run elections. You have to look at what does my office do. I don't care what the appraiser does. I don't care what the treasurer does. I don't care what the, sorry,
Every
Rob.
homeowner who who wouldn't have, every taxpayer cares what the appraiser does. Every homeowner who wouldn't be able to prove they owned their land would
True.
care a lot
That's
about
not
what the
I'm-
recorder
That's
does.
not what I'm saying. Not the function of office, how they run their office. Whether Rod has 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 appointed positions, that's none of my business. That's how he decides to run his office. This is how I want to run my office. I want somebody that can not only run an elections division as an elections officer, as a professional. I want them also to be able to help and assist me in all the other departments the other divisions in my department. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all.
I think we agree, we all agree that you could get a chief deputy. We just think that one appointed position is what we feel comfortable
I
with.
don't believe we have in county code when a department is restricted to how many appointed positions they have in their department.
No, but we do have parity. And so if I treated Aaron differently than I treat Rod or Andrea or Bert or Anthony, that wouldn't
Well, I
don't
agree.
want
I
the
agree.
parity.
I
And
don't
in
want
fact,
the
they would
sheriff
have a
to get
legal
6
precedent.
under sheriffs.
Right, and they actually would have the
I
legal
agree with you.
precedent to come against
Yeah.
us and say that,
No, I agree with you. It's just the departments define what they want to do with their organization. That's what I was trying to drive at, not the commission. It's the individual department that have unique focus and missions that are absolutely have different functions than another department, but they're all critical and key. How they staff it is up to the individual department head.
Right, and we've just given him a solution, like 3 different ways that he could create the chief deputy that he wants.
Yes, but basically, he could, in my view, still be able to keep the confidential assistant who's appointed and then have an appointed chief deputy. I don't see a conflict there.
So maybe we should ask Rod or Bert or Andrea to come up and ask them, are you offended that Aaron is asking for a second appointed position?
That's
Yeah,
prob-
absolutely. Andrea, do you want to come up? How about you, Anthony? Do you want to come up and say, what's your opinion on Aaron asking for a second appointed position when you don't necessarily even have one?
And you are that tall. Or I'm that short, I don't know which. I have concerns with multiple appointed positions because I don't believe that that is something that is afforded to every elected official. When I went through 2 years ago and fought to get the staffing that I needed, I could not add appointed positions. I could not change my positions. I had me, a chief deputy, and then employees who are merit covered under that. There was not a double appointed position. Now, I'll tell you, if Aaron is allowed that, I think every one of us will be coming because we all have duties that we are handling with either ourselves or our chief deputies that we could definitely use a confidential assistant. But you have to manage your roles with those 2 higher positions, which is what we have always done in Utah County, saving taxpayers' money.
Thank you.
It looks like we've got another elected official coming to speak.
No, I just
Bert?
want to address that one really quick. So I don't really know everything that happens in the records department, but it's definitely not an election. My department also took over the managing of the records after they're recorded. So Andrea records the records, and I'm not sure if she has other divisions that do other things, but once it's recorded, it's now my responsibility to store those records and maintain those records. So I did assume a portion of that, of her office's duties in maintaining the records of that department.
That happened in January of 2020, so that's already been figured into the equation.
Okay, and you had a chief deputy when that happened.
I also had 2 divisions.
Bert Garfield, County Assessor.
You might have to lower that.
I know. I feel really short up here all of a sudden. Anyway, we have 1 appointed position in the assessor's office. We have 50 employees. I don't know how many employees are there in the clerk's office.
In all the divisions, probably about 25.
So why does the clerk's office, now you could say it's elections because those are big, but tell me what's bigger than the assessor's office right now. We have appraisers scouring this county trying to pick up every parcel that's split, every building that's built. We can't hire appraisers. In the last 10 years, we've had 4 appraisers actually hired at work here. We've hired every one we can find. Utah County is in the top 10 counties in the country in numerical growth. I don't think the clerk's office is unique in having a lot of work. The assessor's office fills it, the recorder's office fills it, they have to record all these transactions. So why does the clerk's office get 2 appointed positions? Not only that, our administrative assistant, Lisa, we share her with 2 other offices. She's a third with the assessor's office, a third with the recorder's office, and a third with the treasurer's office. I don't have any confidential assistant. Is the assessor's office less important? Or is our fair taxes on properties, so you're only paying taxes on what you really what the value of a property is that any less important? Property tax is the thing that funds this whole county, and it's the thing we want to get right. Because a fair assessment is a fair tax. So, yes, I have an issue with it. I mean, I understand. Aaron has a right to do what he wants. But I've asked for many things, and I've said no, been told no. So I'm kind of gotten used to it. So anyway, those are my 2 cents.
Thank you, Bert.
Would I be offended if he got a second assistant? No, because I care about what my needs are. I don't compare myself to others. I learned that in life. It's, worry about yourself. If you compare with the other people too much, it doesn't bother me. I know I did ask to move salary into time limit and was turned down earlier this year for me. So, but that's okay. We figured out a way to deal with that situation. So it doesn't bother me one way or the other. I think what you need to look at is the number of people and are they sufficient for any department? Bert has a challenge. It's probably related to funding in terms of if I can't hire somebody or a lot of people, it might be we're not paying enough or there isn't enough to pay them what it would take to attract them in the marketplace. Would I be offended if Bert got additional salary to hire more people? Not to add staffing, but just to fill up his positions? Heavens no. And if Andrea needed something, would it bother me? No, because she has her own needs and I don't know them. I'm fortunate because I was blessed with a really good staff. I might not even need the confidential assistant budget that I have. I may elect to not have an appointed position under me. That's my circumstance. So that's what I care about. I care about the county being run well in general, as we all should, right? And we have our own opinions on how that is. But if you're asking me, would I be tipped over if Aaron got 2 appointed versus me? No. I wouldn't care one way or the other. I do care that we're in some areas we're underfunded, in my view, just from the little bit I've learned about assessors. We are short-staffed. I think Bert has come up with some creative ways to do things smarter, and there may be some asks coming, and I would be supportive of those when they come. But on this question, the answer is no.
Yeah, Bert and his predecessor have gone through a lot of efforts trying to keep up with the times and cannot keep up with the commercial private sector funding of assessors has been a problem. But this brings up the point I was trying to hammer home, is that every department is unique and they all have their different needs. And so that's why I'm open-ended as to whether or not he has 2 appointed or not. It's not that I have to be one way or the other, it's just that every department is unique.
And if you gave Andrea or Bert 2 or 3 or 4, it wouldn't offend me at all. I would say, what are their needs in that department? If they need that, I wouldn't care. It's just a budget process. So to me, there's a budget. I have the budget. It's just I need to move it from one budget line item to the other. It's what I need. It's what I want. If they want more, they can ask for it, and I will totally support them.
And so what we have is just the one item, but given what you brought up, that may be a separate agenda item, but that could be brought up later.
Yeah. So I think it's important to bring up a couple of things. One of them is continuity. Elected officials come and elected officials go. In the last 5 years, we've had 4 county clerks. And their continuity of services gives a level of professionalism and service to the citizens. Now, as the elected official, you shouldn't be kept from viewing things. Like I said, I would like to know what you were kept from viewing, and we need to remedy that because that's not acceptable. But there needs to be a level of continuity. Not only does a lot of turnover cost a ton of money. Ralph, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Sherm's latest numbers were like $17,000 per person per turnover, but that was pre-crazy inflation and the Great Resignation, so it might be greater now.
That's about right, yeah.
So it's like
but-
17,000. So every
talking about-
time we turn over employees, it costs a lot of money. And I think that that's a waste of taxpayer dollars. Not only is there inefficiency, and across the board, policies are set and overseen by elected officials as they should be. But a lot of the processes and procedures, the more turnover we have, the less continuity we have, the lower our service levels are and the higher the cost is to the citizens. So that is a direct area that is the purview of the commission, is to
Right. No,
I
totally
the
appreciate
HR
that.
policies.
And I don't have stats for this, but how many times does the chief deputy run for that officer's position and get it? So when you talk about continuity, like in your office, you were the elections, you were the clerk, and your chief deputy moved up and took over the position of clerk. So there's your continuity, is I would be grooming somebody to possibly replace me, or even grooming somebody that when the next person comes in and they elect to keep that person there, that continuity is maintained.
Right. And
So
like
the
I said, I think we're
continuity
okay
can
with
be
the chief
maintained in many
deputy.
different ways.
Right. I think we're okay with the chief deputy. So that's part of it. The other part of it is we had a clerk's office that the election was not run by career service professionals. And that office caused 7 of the 10 biggest issues in elections in a decade
Right, and you fix that.
by adding career service merit employees who had the ability to look me in the eye if I made a decision and say, that's not a good decision. Let me tell you
And
why.
I will still have that with the chief deputy. There's that issue is not going away just because you changed the title.
But it does when you change the status. It does when you change the status because an appointed position serves at the pleasure of the elected official. They don't have to have, not only do they not have to have qualifications, but they also don't have certain protections. In county HR policy, we have written that if a merit employee brings up an issue with an ethical issue or a political issue, that they cannot be reprimanded for that and that they have certain protections. We need to have an elections office that is structured in a way that if we are both elected Republicans, if a Democrat won that office, we would want to be able to have confidence in how those elections were run. And so we need a career service merit person who can challenge an elected official. That actually gives us stability. That gives us integrity. That is actually a protection against corruption. That's a protection against political whims. It literally protects the citizens and the county from corruption because employees are protected if they bring up fraud.
So you're saying that a elections director is less inclined to fraud than a chief deputy?
They're more inclined to call it out.
I think a chief deputy would be more inclined to call it out.
Not if they means they can get fired.
It's a difference of opinion.
You know what, along that line of reasoning, should it be instead of full-time appointed chief deputy position, should it be rewritten as full-time career service chief deputy position?
We could discuss that. We could, if we discuss that, then we want to look at the job description, absolutely, we could discuss that.
Yeah, because we could make that change here and now.
And call a chief deputy a merit, hired as a merit employee?
It would
Well,
be
we
a
couldn't-
merit position.
We couldn't vote on it until we had the job description and had it added, but we could do
And
that.
that's where I get delayed
It's a
and
merit
delayed and
position, we just need to
delayed.
go through, but we have a job description, that could happen quickly.
Yeah.
could happen very quickly.
Appointed could be snap a finger, of course, find someone that you can
Right.
work with, yes, and whereas
But you could hire
merit.
someone time limited this week to do
Yeah,
that.
you're right. But we could do it as an interim fill until we have a merit position. I don't know how long that would take,
Right.
Ralph, but
That's a good solution.
that might be what you're going at. I get what you're coming from on that, so. Is that, Ralph, could I ask you a question? How difficult would it be? Paul will say absolutely not, but he often will bend occasionally. But can we make this, and what would it be the difficulty of creating a merit chief deputy position instead of appointed?
Well, it's not hard. What's hard is making this a competitive recruitment. That's what really changes, is that the process is longer because we can't just hire anybody. They have to have the qualifications that are in the job description. Instead of recommended qualifications, it's required qualifications for a merit employee. So the short answer is real easy to change the job description. The process will take longer. We have to vet, we have to post, we have to vet, competitive, process. And so that really is the answer to your question. I think the appointed issue is probably one of the key. Obviously, it's the key issue here. Do we want an appointed position? And there's a massive amount of arguments about that, I know. But it does. The one thing it does do, the appointed, is allows him to move immediately on that, and that's Aaron's argument.
Right, but time limited could do that as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
So could that be an appointed, time-limited position until we fill it with a merit position type?
Yeah.
But I was told that I couldn't move my time-limited funds to justify a manager in the marriage license and passport. So how can you argue moving time-limited funds to get those funds when I've been told that I can't do that?
Well, you can do it with commission approval, and what we're telling you is that we'll give you
You're not
give
giving
you
me
the
approval on
approval.
this. How do
What
I-
we're
how
saying
am I-
is we'll give you the approval for a chief deputy. That transfer can take place.
And do it.
And we do have some funds that we could tap into to do this, LACTF funds that we haven't
No,
yet
those are
received.
one-time funds. We don't use one-time funds to fund
Correct, but this would be
ongoing.
time limited, so it'd be one time regardless. But but it allowed until the merit position could be filled.
I think
Right.
Yeah.
okay. I think we
I-
beat the horse enough.
Yeah, I feel like we're painting ourselves into a corner, but I
I feel like there's a lot of win-win solutions here. that
Yeah.
we could-
So I think,
at.
so the one position here is that, again, as I was trying to emphasize, that each department is unique and they have these demands, and they're all critical. And, but I think the one that we're looking at, do we make this one-time, full-time appointed chief deputy while we work toward getting a merit position filled in its position? Because we are running out of hourglass sand on this. I see the value of it, and if we're going to make it a one-time temporary thing, then so be it, a Band-Aid to get it fixed and to make it permanent resolution at another date to be maybe a next agenda, maybe add a merit position, have that approved, that would replace the appointed position. Does that work, Ralph?
Yes, it works for us. I don't think it works for Aaron.
Well, what happened is if he would get his appointed chief, and then the process for getting a merit position, where the continuity that's critical, so that way when whatever reason Aaron cannot be here, under Title 20A allows his deputies to replace or fulfill his responsibilities. That's what he's looking to do. So we do a temporary appointed position, get the merit going, and you can have that as well. It might be eventually the same person.
But we'd have to, according to what's been said earlier, we'd have to riff that position and then have to reapply
No,
for
because
the new position.
No, because what you're doing is doing a full-time replacement of a career service elections director. You have an assistant elections director that's still vacant, so you have two positions. You're trying to fill
No, but
one.
what we're saying is Brandon and I only want one appointed position, just like the other
Well, wait a second. You
offices.
just said Brandon
Isn't that
and
what you
I-
said? Isn't that what you
That's
said?
exactly what I said earlier. Yeah, that's why we asked the other.
Right, were you guys listening?
He hasn't voted yet.
That's what I
So
heard him
you-
say.
No, I said in
You
my
said that was-
questioning
that
was that
was
my biggest heartburn when you
heartburn.
joked about me eating something wrong was that
Right,
you
but-
already have
You
an
didn't
appointed
s-
person.
But you didn't say that
So-
you were committed to that decision already until.
I assumed from what I heard sitting in this meeting. I apologize
No,
for assuming.
well,
You assumed
okay,
correctly.
so this is more of a referendum then as to where you lie.
It's not so much a referendum, it's just a matter of moving forward, making sure your
Well-
positions are filled,
Of where,
because this is critical.
Well, I think the first step to filling positions is to posting them. So let's get positions that are currently vacant that you feel like you need. You'd mentioned the assistant as position several times. Like, if you need help, let's fill your positions. Let's post a time-limited position. We could get that done this week. I mean, we could get positions posted
I
this
don't want a
week.
time-limited position. I want a full-time.
Well, it would just be a stopgap until we can get your appointed position to the chief deputy, and then you post that.
That understands budgets and finance, and
Yeah.
I think you'd have a hard time to get a time-limited person that has that kind of qualifications. I'd rather just go through the interview process once and get that person on my staff and running. I need that now more than ever.
Yeah, he only has 4 months for the election. And that's what's
And you guys
crucial.
pushing me on the budgets already.
Yeah. And that's why I was trying to
I've got 3
emphasize that.
departments that I've got to get budgets on.
That's what I was trying to emphasize. Every department is unique in its mission and its demands. And so that's why, for now at least, I don't see an issue with this. To get through this election cycle, it's got to be done.
I've said my piece.
Thanks.
If you want to have public comment, that's up to you. Thanks.
We're not to public comment yet, so we have to finish the dialogue up here first.
Well, if you reference it like a Band-Aid, like I think if you do this, it's going to be really hard to back out of. If you bring somebody on, like we want it to be right. I think that's what I'm hearing you say. If we do time-limited budget, get him through this primary, we start working the budgets for 2024 when it's a presidential election, and if he, wants to riff his, confidential assistant like he, suggested, and then have one, that is, again, my heartburn of having more than one with continuity for our other elected officials
Yeah.
that only have one politically appointed. So that,
Yeah, and again, the auditor's office at this point doesn't have any at all, and he's not sure if he needs one. So that's why I say the departments are unique. They all have their individual drives. And for now, the elections is coming around the corner, and to get that thing going is crucial to, at least for me, to support this and then bring it back to the table for 2024 to see how we want to handle it. But we don't have a whole lot of time to debate this.
yeah, and that my argument against that is that you're gonna have a hard time reducing that. Like, how do you go to that individual and say, you're there, and
As he brought
making,
out too,
you're
yes.
just gonna have to cut it out of their budget, and then that person is done potentially with
yeah,
employment.
And you're exactly right, but I mean, every appointed person knows that they could be gone today. And that's something we could discuss another time, but this is, for me at least, a temporary fix for what has to be done for this current election cycle. But I get to your point, I don't think we have it in county code where you're limited to one. It's always been no in the past. We voted to increase the recorder's office 17 because they were behind several years on getting work done. And I got an earful from a couple title companies and that they validated the need that the recorder's office when we made that vote, you and I, Amelia, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And so the idea of additional appointed has not come up since, but this is because of this unique environment that we're facing now. That's what makes us stand out more than the other. And yeah. So again, we're looking at one position to delete and one position to add is all we're attempting to do today.
Do we want to do public comment?
There's, at the end of the meeting, there'll be public comment, right?
I know at the end of the
Yeah.
meeting.
The public comment on this issue. There's public comment at the end for all issues. The public comment on this agenda item we have now.
We didn't, the problem with that is we didn't notice that, right? And so if there's not fair noticing for public comment, now that would be public comment at the end of the meeting, and I'm not the chair. Am I speaking incorrectly?
No, but yeah, in past years, we've allowed for unusual
Oh,
things to
okay.
have public comment, and then we go to the general public comment.
That's up
at
to the
end.
chair,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's historically,
I'm asking what
right?
you guys want.
It's, I guess my only argument is I'm just trying to be fair, right? And if
Well, and to
there's
be-
somebody that, didn't know that they could have came and publicly spoke because we didn't notice it as a public hearing for this item, then, we're going to just have a whole lot of, maybe one-sided comment. I
Yeah.
don't know that, but I'm
And
speculating.
in rough numbers, I got 54 and 50 against on this proposal today, just so you know. So, or starting about 3 o'clock yesterday until
Well,
2, and
we
then
could-
again this morning.
We could do a compromise and we could say instead of the 2 minutes for general public comment, if we do it now, we do 1 minute and just go through them. And then we still open up for general comment at 2 minutes,
Sure.
recognizing that it will be unbalanced. Because there wasn't notice given.
Both sides of the people, and I have no idea if it's unbalanced.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Yeah. From my reading of the email, both sides were pretty engaged. So
Alice, would it be possible to set a shot clock for 1 minute? We will do 2 at the end, which is what we typically do. Yeah, we could do that. Okay, so I'm willing,
Now, and sometimes in meetings that, at the city council level, we allowed a spokesperson to take more than
That's
1
true.
minute,
We could do
right?
a
If you wanted to
spokesperson
say,
could
"Hey,"
take more than 1 minute.
So we're not having repetitive comments, but if they,
okay.
whatever, it's you're
Yeah,
the chair.
I mean, one of you could get more time, or you could each have 1 minute. Which do you prefer? A bunch of people with 1 minute or a few people with more? Okay,
I'm ready.
okay. Alice, you want to start it?
Okay, Sylvia Andrew. Okay, Amelia Powers Gardner, it's obvious that you oppose Aaron's hiring an appointed chief deputy when you yourself hired a chief deputy, Josh Daniels, when you were serving as Utah County Clerk. My question is, why is Amelia Gardner opposed to allowing Aaron the same opportunity as she's had to appoint a chief deputy to the county clerk's office? Could it be that on July 31st, 2022, as Utah County Commissioner, she moved to strike agenda number 20 from the county commission meeting, which would have approved and authorized Cindy Butler to conduct a no-cost, that means completely free, audit regarding a pre-audit analysis to determine whether there's evidence to justify further examination of election records of the 2022 Republican primary, which is eyes on the election. By the way, due to finagling, the 2022 Republican primary audit was never performed.
okay, one of the things too is we can't answer questions. We can only take statements.
However, when someone is addressed, they can reply. I have just given 3 ways that Aaron could get an appointed chief deputy. I agree that he should have one. I said so when we originally split the office, and we can absolutely find a way for that to happen. So your assertion was false. If we are called out, we can reply.
I just Bert Garf with the county assessor again. I didn't mean to be absorbed in this way, but I thought I'd just say, I just like to point out, as a person that was a chief deputy and then became an elected official and was a merit employee too before that, it's a different perspective. So when I was serving as a chief deputy, it was my entire point was to serve the elected official. But if I was a merit employee, I think I would felt more protection to call out things that I thought were, if I thought something was out of line. So I think there's a reason for a chief deputy, but there's also a reason for a merit employee who will feel protected to call out anything he or she sees wrong. So I just think when I was in both roles, I saw things a little bit differently. Just want to point that out.
Kristen Chevrier from Highland. First, I want to point out that the currently advertised position for a county administrator will make it so that each of the county commissioners has 2 appointed people working for them. Second, as Aaron Davidson mentioned, we elected him with an overwhelming mandate. We want him to be able to run his office as he sees fit. I'm also pleased to know that Commissioner Gardner agrees with me on this because on November 22nd, 2022, at the County Commission meeting, at minute 138:51, she said, "I'm not okay with messing with another elected official's staffing plan." So I would ask that you please not micromanage our county clerk. Please let him do the job that we elected him to do. Thank you.
Vince Newmeyer from Linden. I too want to endorse Aaron and his efforts to run his office as he sees fit. There is reason that we should have a scrutiny or a new, fresh look at elections, the elections office, and the things that dealing with that. Why? We've been told that there is no internet connection to the machines down in the election office. Well, there are. It's the Agilis machine, which Aaron mentioned. He wants to find out how and why that works. The Agilis machine, by the way, was created by Runbeck. Yes, the same Runbeck who is causing so much trouble in Arizona's elections and not being transparent. In addition to that, the signature verification software that they have licensed in there comes from Panascript. Panascript is created by a Russian national that still has great Russian ties. In addition to that,
Thank you.
We need a good look at this. Go for it, Aaron.
Tiffany Barker, Utah County. It's clear the bureaucracy is blocking Aaron from fulfilling his duties, and that's another reason why he needs a chief deputy. Aaron's proposal is budget neutral and should be approved without interference. Aaron Davidson was elected at convention and then won overwhelmingly during the general election as well. The people elected him to oversee our elections, and he needs to have the adequate jurisdiction to perform his job. The clerk is independently elected. In order to preserve those checks and balances, he needs to have maximum latitude to fulfill his office as long as it is consistent with the budget the commission has set. The money is already allocated for this position. There's no budgetary change required. Other clerks have had chief deputies. Commissioner Powers, I believe you had one as well. That's been addressed. This question is, why should we elect a county clerk or any other county office if their wishes can be overridden by the commission? Does the commission have the ability to shut down the hires of other equal elected offices? Please allow Clerk Davidson to do what he was elected by the people to do to fulfill his duties to oversee our elections the best way he sees fit. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ritchie from Utah County. Many of us have had concerns about election integrity. I've been here about 10 times to address those over the last 2 years and have received absolutely no satisfaction. I've sat through a whole meeting to have the public comment eliminated at the end. I've sat through parts, canceled my job responsibilities to come and sit where the thing has been canceled off the agenda. The level of frustration is so high that finally we as voters elected someone who had the same passion to figure out what is going on with our elections. Show us what is happening. Let's be transparent. Let's be honest about it. Aaron is the guy. He was chosen by nearly 80% of the electorate. And I feel like we're putting barriers up to dare him to try to accomplish his job. Please consider this and allow him to do as he sees fit with his department. Thanks.
Deborah Travoy from Lehigh, Utah. And I feel like that merit is the same thing as tenure. for our professors, which has put out a lot of college students that hate America now. And a merit just gives them a chance to do fraud. And how are you going to find somebody, I have an accounting degree, that is very qualified, that is going to want to work with him for just a little bit of time till you find somebody that you want to come in that is going to be merited? I took an auditing class and studied how fraud is done. And I think it's a very good way to have somebody that is merited to do fraud. It just opens the door for fraud to happen. And so I don't agree with the merit or with what they have done with the professors by tenuring in them, we see with the students.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Heather M. Fry, and I am a candidate for Orem City Council and a 24-year resident of Utah County. I am here in support of Aaron Davidson. I was one of the almost 80% of electorates who voted for him because I believe in his integrity. I believe that he has proven himself as a competent individual as well as someone of upstanding moral character. I don't let my mom run my household. And I don't think that it is the job of the Utah commissioners to run the household that Aaron has been elected to run. I believe that he has shown that he has the ability and the tenacity to serve our community, to serve our county. I thank you for your consideration, and keeping the taxpayers at the forefront of your decisions is laudable. Your service as Utah County Commissioners is valued, and as a decades-long resident, I ask that you value the voices of the constituents who trusted him, who put him into office. I also respectfully request that the true state flag of Utah be flown in these chambers until March 2024, according to the law.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Hancock. I'm a Lehigh City resident as well as a Lehigh City Council member. A couple of things that I wanted to address is, one, I think, Amelia, you're right. There's certainly an opportunity to have a chief deputy here, but I don't think that it needs to be at the expense of an elections director. As our public works director in Lehigh City, we have two appointed officials, and that's it. We have the city administrator and city recorder, and they serve at recommendation of the mayor, but at the council has to ratify it. So there are 5 individuals that would have to upturn it. So if the mayor came in and was elected, he may be able to say, hey, I don't want that person as the recorder anymore, but the entire council would have to, or at least a majority of the council would have to overturn that. And so there's not as much turmoil as far as every time there's an election, there's the potential of somebody being thrown out. And we're also nonpartisan in Lehigh. And so the fact that we have a partisan elected official is concerning. I also think that the merit versus appointed is an important distinction when we talk about the required versus recommended. And I think that's important.
Thank you.
Lyman Momini, American Fork, Utah. I take it as a matter of faith that under Amelia's leadership, the clerks cleaned up the rotor rolls and did a substantial amount of good work in the clerk's office. And on that basis, I supported you to be elevated to the position you hold now. We also supported Aaron Davidson to take over this job and build on the good work that you started. And for that reason, I support him having what he asks for, and we will hold him accountable at the next election if he drops the ball and fails to continue to improve the department. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got one more coming.
I'm Sharon Anderson from Orem, and I ask you to give Aaron Davidson what he has asked for. He's the head of this department. It kind of feels, Amelia, like, if I understand correctly, last year you thought a chief officer was a good idea, and you didn't get it, and now when somebody wants it, you don't think they should have it. That's hard for me to understand. And I think that as the head of this department, Aaron does need to have the ability to run the department the way we elected him to do it, which is according to his best judgment and his expertise. So I urge you to approve his request. Thank you.
We have online. No comments online? Okay. Okay.
Then I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda number 32 as written, with the understanding that in the future we will likely fill the assistant director position and address future positions that he may need in the coming weeks or months.
Seeing no second on that motion fails. All right, we are now open for general public comment. Do we have any online, Alice? Do we have any more in the room? All right, I will entertain a final motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I can second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.